Good morning. This is your stat sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is a warm up for Chi-Square Goodness of Fit. What you watching? So last year at the 6 p.m. time slot, television channels 2, 3, 4, and 5 captured the entire audience with 30%, 25%, and 25% respectively. So those should add up to 100%, and I happen to check in that they do. Advertisers wanted to know whether the distribution of the current year viewership followed last year's distribution. So they want to know whether current year follows last year. That's probably really important. That kind of lays out what our hypothesis is going to be. During the first week of the 500 of the year, 500 viewers. That's my population out, or that's my sample out of more than 5 million viewers were randomly selected. So we have a random sample. And in the space below, write the hypothesis and explain how you might calculate the expected values. So let's address the hypothesis. Well, they want to know whether the distribution of the current year followed last year. So I'm going to start off and say, you know what, my null hypothesis is, and remember the null or the HO always is positive, always test positive. So the distribution of the current year's TV audience is the same as last year's. All right, the same as last year's distribution or last year's audience. And if you just stopped at last year's, it would have been fine. All right, our alternative. So the HO always is positive, so is the same. So the alternative is going to be a negative statement, and it's always a negative statement. So the distribution of the current year TV audience or TV viewership, whatever, is not the same as the prior year or as last year's. So almost the same thing. It's just one, the HO is always positive, always test positive, and the alternative is a negative. All right, the other thing it asks us to do is the expected values. So I'm going to go ahead and write expected here. And it was nice of them to give me a total. A lot of times they won't give you the total and you'll just have to add them up. In this case, when I add these up, they sum to 500. So if I have 500 totaled here, I'll have 500 for my expected. What's going to be real important is these percentages. So I'm going to go ahead and write 0.30 for that's for channel 2, 0.25 for channel 3, 0.20 for channel 4, and 0.25 for channel 5. So the easiest way I know is to go into stat edit. So stat edit and enter the values. Well, I've already entered the 139, the 138, the 112, and the 111. Well, I'm going to go ahead and enter the percentages as well, but I'm not going to be done. So be careful when you do this because a lot of students stop here, and if they do, they'll get the wrong answer. So 0.2 and then 0.25. All right, so I've entered the percentages, but I really need those percentages out of 500. So really I need to take 30% and multiply it by 500, 25% and multiply by 500. And I can do that by hand, or I can use a little short trick in the calculator and go second 2 times 500. And sure enough, it went ahead and multiplied those out for me. And so now I have expected 150 Here I got 125. Here I have 100. And here I have 125. And I'm going to go ahead and write out how I got those because I don't want people to miss this. This is 0.30 times 500. This is 0.25 times 500. This is 0.20 times 500. And this is 0.25 times 500. And these two are exactly the same because they have the same percentages and they're multiplied by the same total. Anyway, that's our warm up. I sure hope that helped and hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.